Do, 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 do. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Content warning. I'm about to show an asshole spewing shit.
I have personally heard from many parents, more than I can count, who tell me versions of the same horror story. A beautiful and innocent kid one day, seemingly out of nowhere, gets sucked into the gender cult and is devoured by it. The child they held as a baby and raised and gave their lives to and loved and still love becomes suddenly unrecognizable. All of their innocence and light and beauty just drained out of them, replaced by this self-cannibalizing madness. For a parent, to see this happen to a child, it is a fate worse than death. I would rather be dead than have that happen to my kids.
Matt Walsh is a hot flaming piece of trash. He's nothing more than a troll without a bridge. Matt, a grown-ass adult, still hasn't figured out what a woman is, so he traveled the world to make a documentary asking, what is a woman? The only thing he learned from that experience is that there are countries outside of the United States. But he has yet to ask, what is a man? Is a man someone who feels threatened every time his beliefs are challenged and instead of loving people for who they are, demand they fit a rigid social construct? Someone who whines and complains when he doesn't get his own way? Is a man someone who trembles at the thought of not being at the top of the hierarchy? Someone who lies to people and manipulates them because he's afraid should they think for themselves, they'd see him as the weak, pathetic coward he is, who's desperately trying to stay relevant by crushing others? Well, Matt proves you can be all of that and still be a man. Since there's no set characteristics of what makes a man, it means Matt is choosing to be a horrible person.
That's why I'm entitled to my anger and to whatever language I use to convey it. I will say whatever I want to say, and I will be justified in saying it because these people are after my kids and yours and everyone else's.
Fear-mongering, the action of intentionally trying to make people afraid of something when it is not necessary or reasonable. Fear-mongering about vaccines is dangerous to us all, she said. It can be difficult to separate the facts from the fear-mongering. Or like using vague terms to claim a group of people are out to get your children, despite never giving any real-life examples of this happening. No one is trying to make children trans. The exact opposite is true. Trans kids are often forced to live as a gender they don't identify with. From the time we're born, we're bombarded with examples of cisgender hetero relationships. To step outside of that norm brings scrutiny, people probing into your life, your intimate details. Questions are casually or even forcefully asked of LGBTQ plus folks that people wouldn't dare ask of straight cis folks. I'll answer a bunch of these questions right now. It's none of their goddamn business.
And you're worried that I'm being a little rude? Well, you see, when it comes to my children, the children that I cherish more than my own life, if you think mean words go too far, then you would be very shocked to hear how far I would really go to protect them. Trust me, words are the least of it.
What are you implying, Matt? Words are the least of the worries. So, actions? What kind of actions? What exactly are you protecting your children from? He says he would do anything to protect his children, except live and love them should they be anything other than what he demands. No, he'd rather be dead than have to accept his children if they were LGBTQ+. Recent polling shows 20% of Gen Zers identify as LGBTQ+. That's 1 in 5. According to Wikipedia, Matt has 6 children. Matt's also fine with his colleagues talking about assaulting children.
You're obviously a young woman. You're a young woman who is confused and probably confused because you're seeking attention, and it is a cry for help. And your grandmother answered that cry for help by telling you that you are loved as you are and that you don't need to fall into this trap of insanity. You're the best grandma ever, by the way, because when I'm a grandma, if I get any foolishness like that, I don't know. I want to be a sweet grandma. I really do. I want to be a sweet old lady. But I feel like I might be the kind to hit somebody with a cane. I don't know. Be like, hey, I'm not calling you Michael. Psh. I feel like that would probably be me. But I would have prayed for you.
Leave it to right-wingers to make praying for you sound like a threat. But then again, Matt is on camera saying if a 16-year-old girl gets pregnant, the problem is if she isn't married. Not her being a child having to raise a child. No, that's not the problem. He talks about girls being their most fertile in their late teens. A grown man, married, talking about the fertility of children. That's unsettling to say the least. You see, Matt thinks a woman's, or a girl's, only purpose is to have children. He feels they're competent enough to raise another human, make decisions for this human that will have lifelong consequences, but they're not competent enough to make decisions about their own life. Matt is a close-minded bigot who projects disconcerting vibes when it comes to women and girls, yet somehow he's brought onto state committees to provide them with expert testimony about trans issues, something he has zero expertise with.
Can you give us a summary of your educational background or your healthcare education experience?
Mr. Walsh, you recognized.
My experience in healthcare?
Your educational background. I'm just curious. You've testified as to a lot of your own research. So I'm curious for what purpose you do that and what background you have to qualifies you to speak to that.
Well, my
Mr.
background
Walsh.
that qualifies me to speak to this is that I'm a human being with a brain.
Hey, Matt, you're not supposed to lie while giving testimony.
I did. Now, it's true. I didn't go to college, but I did go to school long enough to learn how to read so I can read the data for myself, and that's exactly what I've done.
Apparently, not long enough to learn how to think critically, or learn how to source your material for accurate information, or that you should let the information help form your views instead of seeking information, no matter how erroneous it is, to back up your opinions, or that you shouldn't cherry-pick fringe cases to make broad policy and justify your hateful views. Matt's making the choice to mislead and vilify a group of people. Look, I'm not a stickler for education determining if a person has expertise, but if a person has to declare in a room full of human beings, presumably with brains of their own, that they themselves is a human being and has a brain, then they're not qualified to talk about shit. Matt didn't attend college. I attended some college. Leaving my more robust education aside, I'm far more qualified to talk to trans issues than Matt is, by far. I'm non-binary, which was not the gender I was assigned at birth, so many people view me as transgender. Since I didn't change how I present and change my name, I'm fine with she/her pronouns, primarily because I'm not keen on using they/them. And other than updating my government IDs to gender X and having a better understanding of myself, nothing about me has fundamentally changed, so I don't consider myself as transgender. I also have zero issue with anyone referring to me as trans. I've had many close trans friends. Some are like family to me and I love dearly. I've seen them harassed, heard their experiences of violence perpetrated against them. They've told me what it was like to come out, what it was like to be a child living in a body they didn't identify with, how transitioning caused rifts in their relationships or workplaces, how they had to hide who they were, how they risk rejection, harassment, or violence every time they come out to a new group of people. I also know, despite all of that, the thing they wish they could change the most would be the ability to have transitioned sooner. I see their joy when they find the outfit that best reflects who they are, their happiness when the people they're around accept them, their confidence, their determination, their strength. They have been the kindest, most accepting, most supportive people in my life. I am free to be who I am because of everything they have already fought for. I have never known a trans person who has harmed anyone, let alone a child. I've known plenty of cis men who have. Like Matt, I also read, but unlike Matt, I read legit studies. I get my information from people with first-hand experience or information gathered from verifiable sources. So, a couple of things he never bothers to mention or outright lies about. Puberty blockers are safe and reversible. Surgeries on children under the age of 18 is not a thing. The suicidal ideation rate for trans children drops to below that of their cis peers when they're accepted. Transgender people are far, far more likely to be the victims of harassment and violence than to be the perpetrators of it. The regret rate for transition surgeries is among the lowest of all surgeries. There are reasons for that. It's not easy to transition. A person must constantly advocate for themselves. They face barriers every step of the way. People have to take into consideration how their family, friends, workplaces will respond. There will be people in their life trying to talk them out of it, trying to spark doubts. People know they will become the target of hate. Not everyone has a doctor who will help them. Of the doctors who will help, it still takes years, and they have to pass multiple screenings. It's not a simple process. A person doesn't go through all of this unless they are certain this is what they want. A person must be determined. Of the people who regret it, the primary reasons are lack of access to care, lack of finances to continue, and lack of social acceptance. All of that was for adults. It's even harder for children. It takes years of doctor visits, counseling, socially transitioning, fighting against societal pressures, fear of the family breaking up, navigating school systems, and all of this is done before they're given puberty blockers and hormones, and I'll repeat, they still have to wait until they're an adult before they can get their surgeries. There is no such thing as a child, or even an adult, walking into a doctor's office saying, I want to change my gender, then leaving with a prescription for hormones and an appointment for surgery. And a child can only transition if they have the support of their parents. Without that first step, the rest doesn't happen. The child will be forced to go through a puberty that can be traumatic, and there's no guarantees that when they're old enough to do it without their parents' consent, that they'll be in a position to go through with it. There are no studies to know how many trans children can't transition for every trans child who does. But I do know the number isn't zero. This can be due to parents not accepting, or if they do, know they can't go through with it because of their community, family, finances, religion, lack of medical treatments, and now the government threatening to take children away from loving parents. No one can be groomed or talked into transitioning, but people can be talked out of it, which is heartbreaking because they'll never be happy living as someone they're not. Something that strikes me with all these right-wingers is how none of them come across as being happy. There doesn't seem to be any joy in their life. They're mean, they lash out, they're angry, they're afraid. They've been forced to conform and now demand it of others. And I'm by no means suggesting they're all closeted. Even the slightest divergence from their community is seen as an insult. They're only accepted if they're what they're told to be, which is a horrible way to live. What's worse is when they choose to inflict their pain on others, when they choose to deny people their autonomy, when they choose to be monsters, all in some pathetic attempt to maintain their place in the hierarchy. They reek of entitlement and narcissism. Take away Matt's artificial imposed power on the right wing, and he's the most unspectacular, below average, uninteresting, irrelevant, not worthy of respect, doesn't contribute to the greater good, least qualified person to give opinions about anything, an unlikable turd out there. Transphobes like him are lying to you. They never talk to transgender people because since they have no real arguments, they'd be exposed for the frauds they are. Transgender people talking about how much their life improved after transitioning goes against their narrative. And that narrative, it's becoming more extreme.
If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
If you fear trans folks, but you don't fear where this rhetoric is going, then I really have to question.
I'm a human being with a brain and common sense, and I have a soul.
Don't forget to hit buttons and leave comments. You can find me on Twitter because I pretty much live there. I also have a TikTok account, and I've recently signed up for Instagram. If you can, please support my content by becoming a patron or purchasing something off my wish list. Every little bit helps. Links are in the description box below. A special thanks to those of you who already have. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.